Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is the Metatron speaking, and I'm here today with my friend Martin.
Hi.
So Martin, thank you so much for joining in.
Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, my pleasure. So, Martin is a Hema practitioner, right?
Yes, I am.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your experience with Hema? What do you practice?
Yes, I can. I tend to fence German school, but not from a single manuscript, so it's more like my interpretation of the German school, if you like. I'm not an expert as well. I've had a few years experience, but not learning at a certain school as well, so with different people and in different locations, loosely based on German school.
Okay, and you focus on German longsword?
Yes, I do.
Fantastic. Now, as you know, in my case, I am a practitioner of Kenjutsu, and I practice the Katori Shintoryu style. Although what you see here, it's not exactly Katori Shintoryu. It's a mixture of all my experiences as a practitioner of several different kinds of styles. So for example, I practiced Kendo, I practiced Olympic fencing, and now I'm entirely focusing on Kenjutsu, and then I do a lot of sparring with my friends. So what is very important, I'd like to say now, is that I do not represent the Katori Shintoryu style, and that if you are interested in Katori Shintoryu, then you should find a local dojo with a sensei who could teach you. In the sort of sparring you see, that's my own interpretation of how an armored samurai would fight, I believe. And of course you will find some Katori Shintoryu mixed in there, but that's just to clarify a few things. Yeah, German, and now you're studying German longsword.
Yeah, that's right.
Very nice, very authentic. Okay, so having said this, another point that we'd like to bring up, and then we just sort of dive into the bulk of what we are talking about. Why did we make this video? Well, the first purpose is not to show how to be a good swordsman. We both don't feel that we are good swordsmen. We're definitely, it's a very long path, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
It takes years, and you always have something to learn. And I myself consider myself to be a beginner. I have a few years of experience, not in Katori specifically, but still, it takes a lot of time. So this is not a video to tell you or to show you how to be good swordsmen. It's just a video to show you how to improve as swordsman. And this actually leads us into our first point, and that is the importance of sparring. So how do you feel sparring is important for?
Sparring is really important for any martial art, I feel, because I'm all into form and kata and stuff like that, so ceremonial stuff as well. But if you miss sparring, you don't have how to say?
Yeah, it doesn't become applicable.
Yeah,
I think
that's right.
It's
that's
a lot of theory, right? Yeah. It's a lot of theory. And to be honest, you can have, if you're in my opinion, whether it be Hema or whether it be, I don't know, Roman Gladius or whether it be martial art like Japanese Kenjutsu, if you're interested in the art, in the self-improvement and whatever, then fine, yeah, kata, technique, you will become a master, very beautiful to look at, and I'm sure effective in a way. However, if you really want to learn how to improve as a swordsman, okay, so be more effective at hitting and improve, you need an opponent. You can't just fight imaginary ghost opponents. In my humble opinion, you need to face someone. That is why I like to complement my my dojo studies with sparring with friends, and that of course includes my friend here, Martin. And this leads us to the next point, because in this case, I was not sparring with a Kenjutsu guy like I sometimes do, or a Kendo guy. I was sparring with a Hema practitioner, and that is a different perspective, isn't it?
Oh yes, it is. Wholly so. It was really enlightening to fight someone who's not doing a European fencing style. So I was used to fight a range of weaponry and a range of opponents, but all were using European styles. So it's really interesting to fight someone with a wholly other system. It
is a different system. Of course, there are similarities. You could see when we do the stances, for example, that we both have upper stance, we both have something that we know, hidden stance, we've got lower stance, so they're similar. But you can see they have a different flavor, if you will.
Yeah, sure.
Right? So you can see that one is Japanese based and one is European based. Again, very similar, because at the end of the day, it's still a steel bar, a sharpened steel bar that you hold two-handed, sort of. But they are different again. And so one of the difference, of course, is the fact that Japanese is single-edged and yours is double-edged.
This might be the biggest difference. Yeah. The biggest difference between the two is the weapon itself, maybe, because in Hema, in what I fence, you have the false edge, so the edge that looks towards you. You can place hits with that as well. That's what Refu had problems with too. But yeah, in Kenjutsu you can turn the katana around as well. So the false edge strikes got you unaware.
Indeed.
But I wasn't aware of the certain peculiarities of Kenjutsu, like for example, you did some things I wasn't expecting, right? So I was a bit dismissive of Kenjutsu, thinking like it's like a European style fencing because it's a two-handed weapon after all, but only with no false edge and less thrusting.
Yes,
but it wasn't.
I see.
It wasn't at all.
It is very complex,
really,
and the way you try to achieve, I think, striking, just seeking for an opportunity to strike, we try to seek them in different ways. The binding and etc.
Yeah, that's true. The binding is more important and more prevalent in European fencing, I feel.
And that was interesting because I was trying not to bind with him because he's really good at it. So after a few times that I noticed that he was like, dominating in the bind, I'm like, okay, never mind, I'm just gonna sniper.
Yeah, right.
I much prefer that, Yeah. And interestingly enough, as he was saying, a few times I was caught off guard when he hit me with the false edge of the blade, because I have developed a little bit of a blind eye from the false head. Now, of course, you can redirect a katana, so it's not like you can't do it, but still, it's quicker with a.
But we've seen that once when we were in a bind, you brought it up, or we brought it up, and I wanted to do a cut, but you were quicker and were just like boom, hitting me on the side. Yes,
I think that maybe I've got a lot of things that I need to improve on, but I think one good aspect I have is that I'm very much of a snap swordsman. Like I try to,
the reactions are really quick, and this is very Japanese to look at.
I would imagine so. Yeah, it probably comes from that. Another point I'd like to bring up is this idea of the intensity of the sparring, so brute force or being technical. And again, this is a big misunderstanding sometimes because a lot of people actually come up to fencers. I think it happens both in the Hema world and in the Kenjutsu world, perhaps even Kendo, and they say, oh, but this just looks like a dance, you're not really committing, you're not going full force or brute force, etc. But here's the thing, a sword is a very technical weapon, whether you're talking about, I don't know, rapier or a longsword or a katana. It's a weapon that you don't really need to go, it's not a blunt implement. And therefore you don't really need to go that strong to win a fight, to become the victor in a duel. If you sniper your opponent's fingers, then he can't operate his weapon anymore. If you open a deep enough wound in the thigh, for example, and he starts losing blood, or if you hit him even lightly, but you do a proper push cut or a draw cut on the face, most likely you will have won. So you don't really need to sort of decapitate or behead your opponent to win. Of course, that's going to be glamorous, but you don't need to do that with a sword. At one point, I remember that Martin managed to impale my right shoulder with the tip of his sword. And to be honest, I think even if the sword had gone this much in, I couldn't do anything. I could just run away in that situation.
Yeah, I think it has to do with Hollywood, because in the past you had these films where people went at it with brute force, hitting each other, but if you do unarmored fencing especially, this isn't necessary because you are dealing with the sword at the end of the day, so a little cut at the right time in the right place might suffice. Strength helps, like Matt Easton put this once really good. Strength helps in fencing, but it's technique which is important as well. So this whole brute strength idea is something which stems from people's ideas about medieval fighting and Hollywood.
Last point on this is the concept of armored fighting and unarmored fighting. Now you notice that we chose to spar without any protection, and that was a deliberate choice. Of course, we're not using steels, so if you do use steels, don't fight without protection. We're not advocating, not being safe, clearly. Yeah. But we used foam weapons, so they hurt a little, to be honest, but
yeah, they do. I still feel the gutting, so
yeah, it's a good reminder, he was saying.
Yeah.
But it's safe to use them. The thing is that it's important to see that when you are fully armored, it's a completely different kind of fighting, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Totally. You would do different things right? In Japanese and European styles, the armored fencing is something completely different from the unarmored one. So you have this 3 fencing styles like unarmored fencing, armored fencing, and horse fencing. So mounted fencing.
Mounted fencing,
essentially.
yes. Yeah. And the areas that you would strike, like if you are fully covered, okay, even if you are pretending to do unarmored fencing, you still don't have the same mobility. He was talking about changing the grip, putting the thumb grip.
Yeah.
It's
right from the
exactly
changing the grips.
So that's tough to do if you've got like bulky protection.
Yeah, that's a bane of Hema because everyone is like in every fencing club around the world is like we need the perfect glove, right? And it's too bulky. This one is too
thin or whatever. Yeah. And so sometimes I think again you need to be careful. Clearly, particularly for the face, I would say.
Yeah, sure.
A couple of
that's the only thing we couldn't do were thrusts to the face, which is sad because I like them.
Oh yeah, I know he's a thrust fencer.
Yeah.
I'm more of a kata. But maybe, what do you think? Maybe wearing just a mask could be a way.
So we tend to fence in our study group. We tend to fence with Rawlings wasters.
Yes,
and I still like them. The majority of the Hema community is like, but I think they're good for several points, which I won't go into now because it's too long. But we do with light gloves, like they're Kevlar and some foam protection, and these and masks, of course.
Yes.
And this suffices usually. If you don't go all in, you even could go all in. We used to, but then you get bruises. But those again are like hit indicators.
Yeah,
right?
hit indicators. Absolutely.
I got hit there.
Absolutely. So again, if you then wear armor, then I think it's good to do sparring in armor.
Yeah,
so
sure.
it makes no sense to just hit him in the breastplate. You've got to try to find the gaps, perhaps using the murder stroke.
Yeah, of course.
What's
or leverage and stuff.
Leverage and stuff is a completely different situation. Anyways, so these were the points that we wanted to bring up. We thank you for watching, of course. We hope that you find this entertaining. And thank you very much, Martin, for joining in.
Yeah, I said thanks for having me.
Thank you. And remember, the Metatron has spread his wings. Goodbye.